Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to discuss my take on a super fun deck, which really tries to get the most out of drawing as many cards as possible. I definitely would put this deck into the more casual fun category than hyper competitive. That being said, it can have some really cool games. And for those players that are looking just to have a good time, I think it's a really, really fun choice. Also, it's definitely strong enough to get to dummy thick. In this video, we're going to first go through all of the card choices, explaining the role that each card has in the deck. After that, we're going to talk about some tech slots, as in, like, what you could sub in or out, depending on what type of matchups you're facing. After that, I'm going to go through the budget substitutions, just recognizing that not everyone has access to every card. Then we're going to do a quick overview of the strategy of how to play the deck, and then jump into some gameplay. All right, so let's talk about the deck. The first category of cards in this deck is removal. Now, this whole deck is built around SendItTooHard, which is also the namesake or part of the namesake of the deck. And SendItTooHard is the strongest board clear in the game in terms of cost. It only costs 2 Pudge, which makes it super powerful. However, right, it has this condition that you can only play this action if your opponent has 15 or more cards in their ice. So because of that, it can be tricky to use it. And so a lot of the rest of the deck is going to be dedicated to making that condition happen. And so, yeah, so this is kind of the core removal piece of the deck. But there's also a few other types of removal that will help buy you time until you can clear the board with SendItTooHard. The first one is BedtimeStory. BedtimeStory is super powerful because you'll be putting so many cards in your opponent's ice. It almost always is active for pretty much every penguin, except for in the super early game. There's also Bridge to Layer 0. And what's nice about Bridge to Layer 0 is it's completely unconditional in getting rid of a penguin. And swapping another penguin back in isn't really that bad in most cases, just because you're going to be clearing it off with SendItTooHard later. There are some cases where this card does show some weakness, which is when you're trying to keep your opponent off of 15 cards, right? It doesn't help you do that. Then I'm also going to put SpringaLeak into the removal category. It removes an action, and this card is just so powerful. I think it's one of the best cards in the game, and it's really good at locking out your opponent. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a deck if we're not playing GotEm, any sort of control deck. So GotEm is just such a good card just because it's such good tempo, and using a rod to remove a penguin doesn't really, it's just so powerful, and against aggro decks, it's so good. All right, so I think that's the removal package. Then, right, we talked already about how SendItTooHard, right, requires 15 cards in the opponent's ice. So how are we going to get 15 cards in their ice? Well, there's a few cards that help with that. The first one is CoolStoryBro. So this is just another one of the saucy actions that enables you to just ice the top 2 cards of their deck. This card is really good because it can often trick your opponent to think they're safe from SendItTooHard, and then out of nowhere you play it and you get them there. Also, because this deck draws so many cards, you will be playing a rod pretty much every turn, and so it's good to have rods that do something. Then there's RodofCheesySlices. Again, this rod is also really nice at milling the opponent, and the reason that it's so good at taking cards from their deck and icing them is because you don't actually need to spend any pudge to do it, and it just kind of happens passively. And as you go through the game, you might have 2, 3, 4 rods of cheesy slices, and it just becomes this like super powerhouse that's really difficult for your opponent to deal with. Then we have PenguinWhosOK, and PenguinWhosOK is the all-star of this deck. And the reason this card is so strong is it says whenever you draw a card, choose a player, ice the top card of their deck, and you draw a lot of cards with this deck, and so you can ice a lot of cards. So this can really get out of control if they don't take care of it. And then there's BottlePenguin. BottlePenguin isn't the strongest penguin, but it still ices cards from the deck, helps you get to that 15 number, and it's a cheap pudge producing penguin, so it's definitely worth running in this deck. And then of course, there's Cannonball. Cannonball is a really good mid-rangey threat, ices 3 cards, very versatile, produces pudge, and it can really sit. It's actually the biggest penguin in this deck, But again, you don't need big penguins. The way you win with this deck is you always go for decking your opponent. So having no cards in their deck, because again, when they have no cards in their deck, they lose the game if they have to draw a card. All right, and then we'll talk about there's one other pudge producing penguin, which is Blue Penguin Wizard. This deck just does require a lot of pudge because it has all these removal spells. So it's just a solid 2-drop that's cheap. And again, the other thing with this deck is you draw so many cards with it that you just need really cheap penguins. So Blue Wizard Penguin is great for filling that out. And then the last thing is we need to talk about how are we drawing these cards. And we do that with 2 cards. So the first one is Penguin with Hoops. So Penguin with Hoops basically just says when you act, when you use it, each player draws a card. And this can just get really out of control because that means both players draw a card and your opponent drawing a card. This deck is designed around the concept of that actually being a benefit for you that your opponent draws a card just because you're trying to get them to run out of cards. So that makes them one step closer. And when you draw a card, you get more cards that you can use to make them run out of cards. And it works really well with PenguinWhosOK. And then the last one is OrbofHopium, which again says at the start of action time, each player draws a card. And again, this is also the symmetric effect that this deck is really trying to take advantage of. All right, so before we talk about the strategy of the deck, let's talk a little bit about tech slots and what you could do. So the cards that I would consider putting in here is, so you can do, let me filter. So if you're playing a lot of aggressive decks, you could consider adding one more piece of removal, which would be Unlikely Friends. So where's that? So Unlikely Friends is another good piece of. Well, the thing I don't like about Unlikely Friends is it gives the opponent the option. Like, do they want to ice the cards, or do they want to do the do they want to ice the cards or ice the penguin? And so because that will give your opponent the option to choose which of those situations, which one is more beneficial to them, it can be kind of inconsistent. But if you feel like you need more removal, depending on what decks you're playing, this could work. Then the other card to consider is Keep Digging. So Keep Digging is really good against control decks or slow decks because it lets you look at their hand and remove non-penguin cards from it. So like this could help you like remove a Yum Yum or something like that. The thing with this deck is because both players are drawing so many cards, it's kind of like, you know, it's not that effective because they usually have such a big hand as well. Then if you're running into the mirror, then you should consider putting in Bunkus. So if you're running into the mirror, Bunkus will just enable you to put cards from your own ice back into your deck. So against blue decks, putting a Bunkus or 2 in will help you kind of yeah, will basically help you win the mirror very easily. And then if you're playing against purple, so either against some sort of mid-rangey purple deck or against a deck that is running Bismo's a win condition, I like running Misplace because what Misplace lets you do is basically on that final turn when they're about to win, you play Misplace, grab a Bismo or a Bunkus, and then they're basically locked out, and then you win the game. Now, you could also argue that Jealous Penguin could be used for this, but I prefer Misplace, although I could see the argument for Jealous Penguin too. The issue with Jealous Penguin is they often run multiple copies, and so you need one Jealous Penguin per copy that they're running. All right, so that's kind of the list. Let's talk quickly about budget substitutions. So this deck is actually not very expensive because of the way the blue starter deck is. So a lot of these cards are already in the blue starter deck. The SpringaLeak, for example, even though it's a rare, it's in the blue starter deck. Or I mean, SendItTooHard. And the other rare cards that are in here are RodofCheesySlices, GotEm, and CoolStoryBro. And all of these are not needed for the deck. So if you are running this deck and you don't have the complete of these 3 cards up here, just sub in any of those cards I said in the tech slots, and that should be fine. Also, I think just keep in mind it's also a fun deck, so don't feel bad about just putting in whatever you want. Like if you're just like I love this card, I think one other card that I would consider putting in if I was really strained for not having cards is um is Sneaky Penguin. I think Sneaky Penguin is super. I just love this card. I think I love this card too much. I think the problem with Sneaky Penguin in this deck is you're already drawing so many cards. So getting this little marginal advantage doesn't really matter because your hand is so full anyway. So you could also maybe put some like 3 wise penguins if you were really facing aggro. I don't know. But yeah, I think in general, there's a lot of options with the budget substitutions. All right, so let's talk about the strategy of the deck. So, right, this whole thing is built around this concept of both people drawing cards symmetrically. And I think this is one of actually the big weaknesses of the deck, which is why I put it more in the casual fun category. Because most people, when they draw a lot of cards, you're actually helping forward their game plan. And so if your opponent is a good opponent, they will adjust how they're playing because they'll realize your strategy and they will just play their hand out really, really aggressively. And it's really hard for this deck to keep up with other like top tier decks that are all just playing cards really aggressively, just because those strategies, then they just don't need to worry about card draw. They put all their card draw down as rods and they just focus on doing their powerful stuff, and it can be very difficult. But that put aside, so I think that's my little disclaimer about the deck. So the strategy is very simple. So you start the game, and at the beginning, the only thing you care about is getting them to 15 cards in the ice. Once they have 15 cards in their ice, then you just start playing Send It Too Hard over and over and over again, clearing the board, while at the same time just trying to remove as many cards from their deck as possible. Okay, now before we jump into the game, let's talk about mulligans. So for the mulligans, what you really just are looking for is cheap penguins and the draw cards. And you would also consider keeping GotEm. So I think, yeah, I would keep GotEm in most cases, unless, I mean, I wouldn't, yeah, I think I would basically keep GotEm, which is good for early removal. And then I would keep like the BlueWizardPenguin, the BottlePenguin, PenguinWithHoops. And if I had a good strong hand, I would keep a Send It Too Hard maybe. Although again, you're gonna draw so many cards that you'll run into a Send It Too Hard, and OrbofHopium maybe as well, just because those are what the deck is built around. All right, let's jump into some games. All right, let's look at our hand. And okay, so we have a GotEm and a Bottle Penguin and a Penguin with Hoops. So that's a really good curve. So we got 2 into 3. So the question is, do we want to keep SpringaLeak? Probably not, because these are both cards that will need to be acting. And so we don't actually have any Pudge. Plus, SpringaLeak is really much better in the very late game. So the question is, do we keep RodofCheesySlices? And I think because it won't be useful until turn 6, because especially we're not going to be playing, we're not going to win any vibe checks because we'll be having these be flopped all the time. So I think we just keep those 3. Well, we got a rod of cheesy slices, so we'll see about that. Okay, so all right, so we'll play GotEm as a rod and pass. So the question is, what are we going to play as our rod next turn? And I think, oh, so we got an Orb of Hopium, so that's great. So we have a perfect curve, and we're going to be drawing so many cards because we have 2 of our card draw cards. So you're going to see some fireworks in this game. All right, so nothing in the action phase. And so let's see. So what do we want to use as a rod this turn? Well, let's see what we draw, but I'm leaning towards SpringaLeak just because I don't see any path where we're going to be able to pay the Pudge for it, because Bottle Penguin will be flopped each turn. All right. So wow, we got another Orb of Hopium. So that's going to be pretty good because, well, there's a question of like, can you have too much card draw? But I think the answer is no, because again, this deck has such a low it has such a low curve. Like all the penguins are 2 or 3 Pudge in Cannonball. So, right, most decks have a much more expensive curve. And so like as we draw more and more cards, they're just gonna end up with a hand that's full of stuff that they can't play. All right, so we lost to Send It Too Hard. And so we should start thinking about that. Like we need to make sure not to lose too many more Send It Too Hards as rods. So, well, we would never play Send It Too Hard as a rod anyway. Well, not never. Like if we had a bunch in the opening hand, maybe. All right. Well, okay. So I'm not going to count this game, but we'll still leave it in the video just because we did talk about the mulligan in the beginning setup. So I think that's okay. And let's jump into the next one. Taking a look at our mulligan. All right, so we have Penguin with the hoops, which we'll definitely keep. There's SpringaLeak, definitely don't want that. BridgeWithLayerZero also is a removal spell that's really good only once they have stuff in their ice. RodofCheesySlices. I'm not sure. I don't think we'll keep this just because we don't have a strong rest of our hand. And I think SendItTooHard, right? Because we'll be drawing so many cards with this deck, I would rather look for the card draw cards. And I'm okay putting one at the bottom of my deck. Okay, so we got a really strong hand because we've got okay, so wow, this is even stronger. All right, so we'll start by playing the rod, the GotEm as the rod, and we have 2, 3 into 4, and then we have this for 6. So yeah, and then we have one piece of removal. So overall, our hand looks good. We'll see if they have removal for PenguinWhosOK, because if they do, it's going to, it's going to be sad because this is such a strong combo together. Oh, especially with OrbofHopium, like this is basically the ideal hand. All right, so what do we want to play as a rod? And I think so. Again, with this deck, you always want to play a rod, just because you'll be drawing so many cards. And I think we'll get rid of our. Yeah, I just don't see. We don't even have any Pudge to play Bedtime Story, so I just don't really see that this is going to be happening in the near future. And this is kind of a little bit of a YOLO deck, so I think we start with this and we see if. Let's hope that they don't remove this. Now, I think that a lot of decks have good answers to PenguinWhosOK. It's a very vulnerable penguin because it only has 2 vibe. And okay, so we're playing against red. So red is interesting. So what are we going to do? So red is a very good matchup for blue in general. However, red also wants a lot of cards in their hand. So I would say that even though red is a good matchup for blue, this specific build of blue is about as um it's about as bad of a deck for red to be playing. Like this is as good of a matchup for red as there's going to be. All right, so they have a use whoopee push cushion. So I think this is probably the red starter deck. And so, but I think in general with red, we would just assume that it's some sort of mid-rangey control deck, maybe with some mega penguins in it. So I think in general, we'll just try to deck them as quickly as possible. Or, I mean, we'll stick to the game plan. And the game plan is all right, so now this is an interesting option. So I think the first thing is we'll definitely play the cheesy slices as the rod, just because we don't really need 2 of them. And we could be super greedy and play the second penguin who's okay. And I think we'll do that because, yeah, so we don't really need to draw cards right now. And so I think we can slow play it a little. We'll play the second penguin who's okay because this ability stacks on itself. Like this every turn we'll be icing 2 cards, and the most important thing is to get their ice to 15 so we can play SendItTooHard. And something else I didn't talk about, which makes OrbofHopium so powerful in this deck, is actually when you send it too hard, OrbofHopium stays on the board. So right, like the penguin with hoops will end up getting removed, but like the OrbofHopium, there's no stopping it. So this is gonna get, yeah, this is gonna get pretty crazy. All right. So yeah, so on this turn, and I think we'll be trying to stay mana to stay fish efficient. So we'll probably be playing the OrbofHopium this turn because we might then next turn, for example, draw a 2 Pudge card that we can a 2 fish card that we can then play with Penguin with hoops. So Cannonball Penguin is good, but I with 2 Penguin who's okay, I don't think we're gonna have any problem getting them to 15 cards in their ice. So okay, so they already have 5 rods, so they kind of maybe I don't think that they could know what's up yet, but I think they're actually very strong, very good play to be playing out all these rods. All right, so we got a BottlePenguin. So this looks like it's going to be a good curve for us because we're going to do turn 4, we're going to do OrbofHopium, and then turn 5, we'll be doing these 2. So then the question is, what do we play as a rod? So I think maybe at this point, okay, so we have 4 or 5, and then 6 will probably be OrbofHopium. So I don't really see a world where we need the Cannonball Penguin. So I think we'll actually be putting that down as the rod. Just because again, this deck doesn't really like we're not gonna have a problem getting them to 15 cards the way this is going. And all right, wow. So yeah, so this is getting pretty crazy. So they're already down to 32, we're at 40. So let's keep an eye on the decks. But we still haven't seen a SendItTooHard. So that's one thing that we're gonna need that. And one other really good thing that Cannonball Penguin does in this deck is it's a good card to play after SendItTooHard, just to kind of have some semblance of board control. Because we also need to think about after we play SendItTooHard, right? They're gonna have the ability to play onto the board, and right, they can still win the vibe check then. So that's why we want to be able to also play things out, play removal, take control of the game a little bit there. And again, we're just trying to stall until they run out of cards. So I think, yeah, so nothing we need to play from our action time. So overall, things are going exactly to game plan. So we have, all right, so they have, let's see how many cards are in their ice. All right, so they already have 7. And so this will take them to 9. I think I was counting wrong. No, no, no. They're at 10. Okay, nice. The other nice thing is while we're losing the vibe checks, PenguinWhosOK actually ends up each one icing 3 cards a turn. So PenguinWhosOK is okay. So the Peace Out Penguin. So okay, so this is good that we're gonna have removal for the Peace Out Penguin because if they activate the Peace Out Penguin, they could take out both of these PenguinWhosOK. But we now have BedtimeStory to counter the Peace Out Penguin. So all right, so we're gonna have with 5. So okay, we'll play GotEm as the rod, which is good. Then we'll play PenguinWithHoops and BottlePenguin. So everything is going well. All right, we drew another special purpose rod, but we still haven't drawn any SendItTooHards. So, and like again, and just like look again at how full our hand is still. Like this deck, you just end up with so many cards in your hand. So that's why we're just always playing a rod every turn, and also why when we designed the deck, we kept we kept the what's it called? We kept the we kept everything in low curve. All right, so they're going to sunburn our penguin with hoops. So in response, we're going to activate it just because we can at least get one draw in. So we'll do that. And then my guess is they're doing the sunburn so that they can do the peace out. But when they do the peace out in response, we will bedtime story. Yeah, we'll bedtime story the peace out in response. And that will enable our peace out to stay alive. And again, this is where bedtime story. Let's just check. Right, it's like if their vibe is less than twice the number of penguins in their ice, but when we look at their ice, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 10. It could ice a 10 vibe penguin up until now. All right, so at this point, we have the question is, do we want to activate the bottle penguin? So would we want to win the vibe check? And I think again, we don't really need an extra rod this upcoming turn, so I think we will just use the bottle penguin ability. I don't think it really is gonna really matter either way if we win the vibe check or not. So, because we wanna play the RodofCheesySlices next turn. We already have so if we were at 4 rods, I would then say, "Okay, we should win this vibe check so that we can play the RodofCheesySlices next turn," but we can already play that. So maybe that was wrong actually, because I'm looking at our hand and we have a 3 and a 4. So we could have had 5 into 6 rods, and then we could have played them both next turn. So I think that was a mistake now that I'm thinking about it, but it's okay. And I think that just goes to show that whenever you're playing on autopilot, there's so many times that you'll just end up making little mistakes that you weren't thinking about. And it's really important to just keep focused on like really thinking through every little decision because there's so many micro decisions that will like they stack up over the course of the game. All right, so they're at 12. So we're gonna have to send it to hard soon. And we don't really have them like we're not gonna be able to deck them before we get to send it to hard. So so that is definitely something we'll have to be doing. All right, so do we want to play Penguin with Hoops or Orb of Hopium? So I think because we're gonna send it to hard, let's play the OrbofHopium instead. And yeah, so I guess one reason do the to not do the penguin with like to not win the vibe check is just because, right, we actually over the course of 2 turns could play each of the cards. But I think that's kind of silly because like look how many cards we're drawing. Our hand is so full. All right, so they're at 12 and okay, so they have 8 cards in their deck. So can we actually just win the game? Because we do have 2 cool story bros. So let's think about that. Like, so do we actually need to clear the board? Because they're at 12. We could bridge to layer 0, but that's not going to get them off of 12. So I think, but we also have 2 cool story bros. So I think we could actually send SendItTooHard and then use all our cool story bros and then actually just end the game next turn without needing to play anything. So I think that's the line. Yeah, with cheesy slices, we will definitely get there. Okay, so they're going to. Okay, so the only risky thing is if we let this go, we may not have the Pudge to play SendItTooHard, but we still have the BottlePenguin, so I think it's okay. And right, if they end up getting too close, we can always use our GotEms to get rid of their wizard penguins. So I think we just let this resolve. And because right, okay, so well, and we can't play both of our cool story bros because we can only play one a turn. So I think this is going to take a few more turns to resolve the game. All right, so so we'll use the BottlePenguin. But right, we need to think about making sure that we always have the ability to actually play 2 Pudge for the SendItTooHard. All right, so they're at 7 cards in deck, 12 points. So we don't need to do anything this turn, but we should always be ready for the next turn. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so it's getting to the final turns, and that's always going to require a lot of thinking. All right, so let's move. All right, so yeah, so we'll do PenguinWhosOK there. So they're down to 5, and so they're going to draw 6, 7 with OrbofHopium. Or so we need to get them to draw 4 cards. So we can do OrbofHopium, PenguinWithHoops. That's 3. Cool story, bro. Yeah, so we can get them down to 0. So as long as so I don't think we're going to need to clear the board actually. Yeah, so I think right because the 2 OrbofHopiums will get them. So we just need to clear the board. So I think we just and we also have so we just have the RodofCheesySlices. So this is we could have also used CannonballPenguin. Okay, well we'll just use CannonballPenguin. Well, we don't need to, right? Yeah, so that's going to be it because we have the 2 OrbofHopiums, and that will be the game. So there you have it. That's a good game with this deck. As you can see, it was crazy. We drew so many cards. We ended up with a full hand, and that's kind of this. Yeah, this deck is just so fast and fireworky, and you can just run through your deck so like in a really fast way, and it's super fun to play because you have always so many cards to play. But all right, let's jump into one more game. All right, let's take a look at our mulligan. So we have a 2-drop. So we definitely want to keep that. But I think the rest of the hand, right, the RodofCheesySlices is not good till turn 6. And then we have 2 pieces of removal, which is not really what we're looking for. We're looking for a curve of penguins. We also got SendItTooHard now. That's good. We have SpringaLeak. We have a BlueWizardPenguin. So this looks like a good hand from a. The main thing we're missing is the ability to ice their cards or to draw cards. So, well, we have some ice cards. Okay, so I think we'll use. Do we want to use SpringaLeak? Well, okay, so I think we can use one SendItTooHard as a rod. I don't think we're gonna need 2 of them. Or by the time we use need the second one, we'll be pretty deep into our deck. So let's see. All right. Yeah, so okay, so what should we start with? Do we start with the PenguinWhosOK? So the one reason to start with a BlueWizardPenguin first, before the PenguinWhosOK, is we could then use SpringaLeak to protect it. But okay, so they're playing yellow, so I think we just need to kind of aggressively fight for the board. All right, so we got GotEm. So let's start with, yeah, so doesn't really, yellow doesn't really have that many good tools except for Daydreaming Penguin, or if they're playing GotEm. But yeah, let's just get the Penguin Who's Okay out there. I think the reason we played that first before the Bottle Penguin was just because this ability can ice up to 2 cards a turn. But I think the counterpoint would be if we wanted to bait out removal. But they didn't remove it, so well, they weren't gonna be able to remove it the first turn anyway. And yeah, so now we drew the Penguin with Hoops, which basically just means that we won't even have time to play the Bottle Penguin. So I think this was good. I do think Penguin with Hoops against yellow is very scary because yellow is one of those decks that also runs a really really low curve in general. Alright, so they got Not Your Keys in the ice. So that's one other thing we haven't talked about yet, which is with this deck, it's really nice because you can, as you ice your opponent's cards, you get a lot of information about the type of deck they're playing. All right, so they're playing, okay, so they're playing Extrovert. Okay, so let's ice that. So should we play Penguin with Hoops? But I think the reason we actually don't want to play Penguin with Hoops this turn, well, no, I think we do because I'm trying to think, or should we just play Bottle Penguin and just keep going icing faster? Because do we really need the card draw? Because we have our next 2 turns done. So I think actually let's just no, but the Penguin of Hoops goes so well with the Penguin Who's Okay. So okay, so let's do that. So what should we use as our let's use the SpringaLeak as the rod because we don't need to counter any actions, I don't think. Like even no matter what they remove, if they remove the Penguin Who's Okay, right? We have 2 Bottle Penguins. So I don't think we'll need the what's it called? The um the why am I blanking on it? The SpringaLeak. All right, so we have so many icing cards. All right, so what's going on here? Hungry Penguin and a a Pudgeman Rod. Okay, so that's interesting. So this is some sort of deck that's probably really focused on getting a lot of penguins out. So that might not be so great for our setup, but we're gonna try anyway. Um, and we have So we're gonna have a second penguin who's okay, which is gonna go great with a penguin with hoops. Okay, cannonball, perfect. So we have so many penguins that are focused on icing. So I think we'll get to 15 cards pretty quickly. Um, but that being said, it would be nice to start getting some more rods out there. But so the question is, would we want to play Cannonball Penguin just to win some vibe checks? But I don't think it's gonna be reasonable to win. Oh, no, so we could win this vibe check, okay? So this is an interesting question. Do we wanna win this vibe check? Because we could actually go to win the vibe check by playing the Cannonball Penguin this turn. So, but if we lose the vibe check, we're going to basically cycle more cards with Penguin Who's Okay. Wow, so this is another thing with this deck is that there's so many decisions to be made, but I think I kind of wanna maybe win the vibe check, but I'm also kind of like okay, so I think the wizard penguin, we don't really need Pudge. We have so many penguins right now. So we'll use that as a rod. And I think we will just let's just go for winning the vibe check, just because I do think that having an extra rod could be useful because then we can play these 3 penguins next turn for 6 rods. And if we're really lucky, we'll get a rod of cheesy slices. Okay, we didn't get a rod. Well, we still have one more. Well, we still have 2 more. No, 1 more draw. So maybe we'll get the rod of cheesy slices. But okay, so they're very close to the 15 level, right? No, not really. They're at 9. I guess 9's not that far from 15. All right, so then do we want to remove something? No, I don't think we need to remove anything yet because we have the Send It Too Hard. So the plan is going to be that we play Send It Too Hard, which is going to clear their board and buy us more time. But yeah, I think it is actually good to win the vibe check here. But so maybe we would get rid of the extrovert if we want to win some more vibe checks, but I guess we don't need that many more. All right, we got a cool story, bro. So I think we're gonna go full. Okay, we'll definitely play the penguin who's okay because that synergizes well with the penguin with hoops. And then we'll play 1 bottle penguin, and I guess we'll play another bottle penguin. Why not? Because we're still gonna have quite some turns before we have to play Send It Too Hard. And again, like we're drawing 2 cards, an extra card every turn with Penguin with Hoops. So I don't think that we're gonna need to really worry about keeping our hand too full. Now this is interesting. They play the Penguin who doesn't mind goodbyes. And so it's kind of interesting because we could actually force them to draw a lot of cards, but I think we'll remove that because I don't want them to have such crazy card advantage. But okay, so we'll do the Penguin with Hoops first because we want to just see what we draw. All right, so they're going for Yum Yum. Okay, so they're basically doing the Send It Too Hard for us. Okay, so then I think we will then bedtime story um, bedtime story the penguin that doesn't mind goodbyes because um, I want to just make sure that they don't have too much card advantage over us. So we'll do that, and then we'll also run these bottle penguins. And so the one question that I'm thinking about is, did I play too aggressively into this? Because I don't really have that much card draw left after this. But I think it's okay because this is going to just really slow the game down. And they're going to be already down to 27 cards. Well, that's not really that much. All right, so they're going to play What a Twist. I'm not sure what that accomplishes. Oh, and we'll have to put both bottle penguins on the stack as well. So, yeah, so we'll put both bottle penguins on the stack because, right, they're going to get destroyed with Yum Yum. It's a little sad. So I should have put the bottle penguins first, maybe, just because then Penguin with Hoops would be on the other side of the stack. But I guess that's, I wasn't thinking that they would Yum Yum. OrbofHopium. That's sad because that's what we wanted to draw. But again, it's like you should think about whenever anything gets iced as if that was the card that was on the bottom of your deck. So, okay, so they play Yum Yum. So we still have Send It Too Hard. Now they're at 15, but we don't have 2 blue Pudge, but this game has been slowed down a lot. So let's look at card advantage right now. We're down 1 card, which is not the end of the world. Like this deck. So what we really need is we need to have 2 blue Pudge to play Send It Too Hard. And so I know I said we want to basically play a rod every turn, but I mean, we played a rod there because it was the CoolStoryBro, right? So this only function of this is a rod. But in general now, I wouldn't play a rod just because we're so short on cards. This game has kind of turned out in a weird direction. All right, so we are going to so we're going to just keep icing their deck. I think they're definitely above the 15 point, right? Yeah, well above it. So we're just going to kind of slowly grind out this game. We're going to get 2 Pudge on the board so that we can clear it again. We'll just keep playing rods. Hopefully we'll get some card draw cards. Okay, OrbofHopium, perfect. What would really be good here is a RodofCheesySlices to really accelerate our deck destruction. And okay, so yeah, so they are getting a lot of rods. So that's one way this deck can lose is that your opponent just plays a lot of rods. But okay, so we're gonna go full card draw. But okay, so I want to keep the Penguin of Hoops. Oh, we can play them both. Okay, so we're gonna go full card draw. The Mega Penguin doesn't bother me at all, just because we have Send It Too Hard. So we're gonna let this Mega Penguin build up. Okay, and we have a SpringaLeak, so we'll be able to. So that'll be good in case they play any spells. But I also think that right, the thing with SpringaLeak is we have right, we can only use it if our penguins are not flopped. And I think that's one of the reasons, again, why we're playing BlueWizardPenguin in this deck, is just because, right, the ability to actually have the Pudge, because a lot of our penguins end up being flopped all the time. All right, so let's think about, so we have removal for if they play other items, other penguins. So I'm not worried about that, but there's no way we're going to be able to beat the Mega Penguin in a vibe check. So we'll be having to clear the board again. And the question is, are they just going to try to grind out the game with rods and the Mega Penguin? Because I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to do about that. So yeah, they're at 16. So we have 2 here from the rods. So we really need to accelerate the speed that we're milling them. And they're at 13 already. All right, so they're at 14. Okay, so we'll use some removal this turn to just get rid of something. So we're gonna play removal 1 turn, and then next turn Send It Too Hard. So okay, so what do we want to do then? right, so we'll play a SpringaLeak as a rod for sure. And do we play the BottlePenguin this turn? If we play it, because we're going to play SendItTooHard next turn, but I think we'll want to save it for after SendItTooHard because we're going to want to have 2 blue Pudge so that we can use removal. Um, oh wait, no, we have to use removal this turn, right? Oh, we're going to have to clear the board this turn because, yeah, because we have Bridge to Layer 0, but Bridge to Layer 0 just ends up swapping cards, so that doesn't help us. So yeah, so we're going to have to SendItTooHard this turn. All right, so I guess that's just what's happening. Okay, so we're playing, yeah, so we're playing SendItTooHard. We're going to knock them back down to 11. And then, yeah, so the question is, how are we going to control the board after this? Because I think we're going to have to start winning. It's going to be actually hard to deck them, I think. Just because, yeah, they're still at 15. We have two CoolStoryBros. So that's going to take them down to basically 10 from the 14 that they're at. Okay, so Hungry Penguin, we can deal with. Okay, so all right, so the pot stirring penguin we can deal with GotEm. The hungry penguin we can flop away. All right, so we'll play both our penguins, and then we will play GotEm. So okay, so we can get rid of um yeah, so this is gonna be tricky. I think we're gonna not get there, but maybe we will. Okay, so this turn we can still survive, right? We can keep them off 15 by using a GotEm. And so then we can actually use Bridge to Layer 0 and GotEm to get rid of the Hungry Penguin. So I think we'll use, yeah, so let's just use the GotEm, and we'll just use this turn to just do some more milling and card draw. And this is a situation where Penguin with Hoops is very dangerous, right? Because I really don't want them to get more cards. And so, okay, so the question is, would I rather use Bridge to Layer 0 now to buy one more turn? But I'm kind of like, I think I'm kind of just committed to just going for it because, yeah, next turn, like Pudge wise, yeah. So let's just go for it. Let's see what we draw first with Penguin with Hoops. Well, I mean, I guess we're going to do this anyway. So, all right. So we can basically remove one card from the board by basically doing Bridge to Layer 0, swapping in something low, and then using GotEm. But I don't know if we're going to be able to get them because they're at 11. Yeah, this will be tricky. What would be really helpful now is a Cannonball Penguin. I think if we got a Cannonball Penguin, we could actually think about winning the vibe check. Well, we can still win the vibe check maybe actually because we can we can get rid of, yeah, we can win it with a penguin with hoops. So yeah, so let's think about it. So I think the way we win this is if they don't play something big, then we can win the next round vibe check and they're down to 9. We have two cool story bros and they're going to draw a lot of, yeah, they're going to draw a lot of cards. So okay, so yeah, so this turn I think we can win the vibe check. So we'll play, yeah, so I think we go all in. So we basically are going to do penguin with hoops, OrbofHopium, and we are going to do GotEm. All right, so we're at 14 now. So we could actually just win the traditional way, maybe. If we do bridge to layer 0. Yeah, if we do bridge to layer 0 on the hungry penguin, then we can win the traditional way maybe. But maybe they have a card in their hand that can counter that. So okay, so we'll play bridge to layer 0 on the hungry penguin, and we'll use those two for Pudge. And yeah, so then we'll just swap in something small so that our penguin with hoops can win the vibe check. Although I'm not sure what they have that's small. So we'll see. We'll see if this resolves. Um yeah. So okay, so let's see what's happening here. So we'll get the, all right, so we want something small. So I think the flying penguin is going to be the best option. Yeah, let's put the flying penguin in. Okay. So now we're going to win the vibe check. We're at 14, so we would win the game. But even if we wouldn't win the vibe check, next turn we do cool story, penguin who's okay, orb of hopium. So that would so we would end up getting them to 0 cards next turn, although and then win with Penguin with hoops. Yeah, okay, so, um, hmm, okay, but now we're gonna lose, I think. Yeah, because there's nothing we can do about this, right? So, yeah, so, okay, so the fact that they have buddy up means that we're going to lose because okay, so what could I have done differently about this? I could have tried to no, I didn't have time to got him the flying penguin. So yeah, so because if they buddy up, they'll tie. We can use one got him. Nope. I don't see a path out. Okay, so we're gonna lose this game. Well, anyway, it was very close. It came down to the last turn. And I think again, this highlights one of the big weaknesses of the deck, which is right, because you have them draw so many cards, you can end up in a situation where you end up helping their game plan as well. But yeah, anyway, I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. And oh wow, they even have what a twist. Okay, so oh wait. No, if they played what a twist, right? Because now we could got them the flying penguin. But let's just do that. Maybe that'll trick them into doing something else that's not the right move. But yeah, I think there is yeah, because they're going to be down at 14. So anyway, yeah, so thanks for watching, and if you like this type of video, yeah, just subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna keep putting up more deck guides, and I think they're gonna be this one is definitely more on the, like, fun, wacky side instead of the, like, super competitive side, and, I love this deck. I I'm not gonna tell you that you're gonna become number 1 on the ladder with it, but it's definitely possible to have a good win rate with it, and it's super fun. So anyway, thanks for watching.